Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our Lunch and Learn series. Today, we will be talking about Splunk Monitoring Console, and our very own Eric will be laying that all out for us and providing explanation. So stay tuned, stick around. And now I'll turn it over to Eric to take it away. Thanks, Eric.
All right, thanks, Steve. Like you mentioned, my name is Eric Holsinger. I am a Splunk analyst on the Customer Experience Expertise on Demand team here at the Kinney Group. And today I will be going over the basics of Splunk Monitoring Console, kind of what it's for, how to use it, and really the ways that it can be used to really jumpstart troubleshooting and just daily administration of Splunk itself. So we can go ahead and jump to the agenda here. So we're going to be going over the monitoring console as an overview of what it is. We will talk about standalone versus distributed mode and what those two are and what they mean. Setting up the monitoring console, using health check, and then using monitoring console in general. A big chunk of this is going to be a demo as showing you different sections of the monitoring console that I feel are particularly important, particularly helpful in troubleshooting and administering Splunk. So we will start out with what is the monitoring console. So it is a web-based monitoring tool for Splunk deployments, any kind of deployment, whether it is clustered, standalone, all-in-one, anything like that. Monitoring console works for it. It provides a comprehensive view of the health, performance, and configuration of Splunk instances. It allows a visibility into things like license usage, search performance, indexing performance, forwarders, things like that. And like I mentioned, it can be used for everyday environmental monitoring and troubleshooting of environmental issues. And like I mentioned, it can be able to be configured in standalone and distributed mode. And we'll go over that in just a moment here. But what does monitoring console help with? You can troubleshoot, and this is not a comprehensive list of things that it can handle, but you can troubleshoot ingestion stoppage or slowing down, license usage issues, such as if you're exceeding daily license issue or quotas, identify resource usage issues on the instances in the environment. You get insight into search issues, and you also have the ability to set alerts that can track condition of the environment daily. And so like I mentioned, there are two modes, standalone and distributed. So standalone mode is for those Splunk environments that are all in one. So that is one that is acting as a search head, indexer, everything all in one. In the overview page that we show in the screenshot here is laid out differently than if you're in distributed mode, which is used for environments that are clustered. If you have a search head cluster, if you have a single search head with indexers separately, so basically multiple machines versus one machine. Like I mentioned, here is the overview page for distributed mode. You can see it looks different. It's more horizontal than vertical and gives you different information. But it allows all the capabilities of monitoring console for distributed environments. And to set it up for standalone mode, they're both pretty similar setups. So you'll go to monitoring console, you'll go to settings, you'll click general setup, and then you'll see here, and I'll go over it on a bigger screen here in just a moment here. You choose standalone, you add search head, license manager, and indexer as server roles, then you click apply changes. And that's all you have to do to set up standalone mode. Distributed mode is a similar process where you go to settings, general setup, but then you click distributed mode. And if you have a monitoring console in distributed mode, you have to make sure whichever server that machine monitoring console is running on, that you have peered the other machines in your environment. So say you have two search heads, two indexers, a heavy forwarder, and a license manager. Make sure all of those are peered with whichever machine the monitoring console is for. And monitoring console can be used on a machine with other roles, or it can be its own machine, standalone machine with the express ability or express capability to just be a monitoring console. And health check is it performs a list of pre-configured checks that evaluate the health of an environment. And we'll do a quick one later on in the demo. Existing checks that are there can be modified, and you can add new checks. And it gives you results that are error, warning, info, success, or NA. So basically, it's just checking a list of common issues within Splunk environments and making sure your environment's running correctly. And then when using the monitoring console, you'll see this is your main navigation bar. You'll see that we have a couple sections: overview, summary, assist, health check, indexing, search, resource usage, forwarders, and settings. Under each of those, if it has the little arrow there, that means there are multiple sections within that. And a lot of these have even subsections within those sections. So monitoring console is pretty vast. I won't be able to hit every single section today. But like I said, I chose a handful that I think are pretty important in making sure everything's running correctly. And so we can go ahead and jump into the main meat of this presentation, which is the demo here. Let me pop over my screen. And so you can see here, we are at the overview of a monitoring console in distributed mode. So we can actually just go ahead and jump over to settings, general setup here. And I guess I should show, to get to monitoring console in general, you click on settings on Splunk itself. You'll see this icon here, monitoring console. If we click on that, it takes you to the overview page. So if we go to general setup here, you can see we are in distributed mode. We can click standalone, see what that looks like. We just won't apply these changes. But you can see it is going to be everything all in one. While in distributed mode, we have this instance, and then we have our remote instances. So these are the ones that I said that you would have to search peer into your environment, make sure everything is peered so it shows up here correctly. Once everything is here, we're going to look at these server roles and make sure the server roles are correct for the machine. So this is a deployment server. We make sure that the server role is a deployment server. This is an indexer. We make sure that the server role is indexer. If we need to change that, we just press edit on these actions over here, and we can click edit server roles, and we have our roles here. We can click whatever we need, click save. So making sure that all of the instances are here and they all have the correct server roles is the most vital part of setting up distributed mode monitoring console. But once everything is correct, we can click apply changes. And then we can go to overview. And we didn't actually make any changes, so this will look the same. But you can see it'll take us to overview for distributed mode. In here, we can see indexers, I should say. We have 4 of those. We have 3 search heads. We have 1 cluster manager. We have 1 license manager and 1 deployment server. And it gives us a bit of an overview of information about each section. So we have the CPU and memory usage for indexers along with the indexing rate. For search head, we also have the concurrent searches. Cluster manager, we have the searchable peers, indexes searchable, etc. License manager, we get the license usage and resource usage. And deployment server, we have memory usage and how many clients it's talking to and how many apps it's pushing out. And under here, if we have alerts set up, this is where our alerts will show up if they are triggered. So we can go ahead and look at how we set up those alerts. So we're going to go under settings, alert setup. We will click that, and you can see these are the list of pre-baked alerts within monitoring console. So you can see we have things like critical system physical memory usage, disk usage, total license usage near daily quota. So if you've used up to 90% of your daily license quota, it'll give you that alert so you know that you're about to go over, and you can kind of troubleshoot from there if need be. So these, all you have to do to enable them is click the enable button. You can edit them if need be. So let's say on the license usage, if 90% is not too concerning for us, we actually just want to wait till it's 95. We can make this change here. Click save, and you can see now it will alert us if it was 95% and above. We can also do advanced edit, which opens it up in the alerts page. So we can make more comprehensive changes, such as editing the cron schedule, what it does when it's triggered, etc. So that's what we can do with the alerts there. So we'll go back to overview, and we'll actually head on over to summary. So this is a pretty similar page to overview. It just kind of lists out some information in a little bit of a different way. So you can see we have our deployment topography that we saw there. We have our deployment metrics, and then we have components. So a lot of times these kind of health of Splunk deployment here, similar thing here. So we can see we have a red resource usage. It tells us these anomalies right here. So this deployment components relates to anomalies. So you can see our maximum per CPU IO weight reached red threshold of 10. We can expand that, see which instance it is. And this is a way that if you're having some issues, you can check here, see if there's anything listed here. You can see which instance is having the issues and start that troubleshooting process from there. So that is the summary page. And like I mentioned, we are going to next go to health check. And so like I said, this is a list of searches that it runs to check for issues in your environment. Basically a good place to start to see if everything's running pretty okay. So we can go ahead and click start there. We'll give it a minute here to run. And you can see it's going to fill in these results. Like I mentioned, we're going to have green for good, yellow for warning, red for error. We have not applicable here in gray. So this is looking for things like event processing issues, expiring licenses, KV store status, disk usage, things like that. So we can see this is finished running now. We have 18 checks. We have 1 error, 5 warnings, 15 successes, and 1 NA. So if we click on this error, we can see the most critical issue here. It's an expiring or expired license. If we go ahead and click this, it gives us a description, a message, and even a suggested action, and then gives us a result of the search. And this is actually due to this environment. We have a couple of licenses that are old that have expired. We also have a new license. We just didn't take the old licenses off there. So it sees those, it sees a license, it sees it expired, so it's going to warn us about that. And you can imagine if you have one that's about to expire, it'll let you know about that as a warning. So this is a very useful way to just get an overview of how your environment's doing. And like I mentioned, these can be edited or you can add new ones. So if we go to add additional items to this checklist, we can go ahead and click this. You can also go to settings and health check items, and you'll be able to see the list of health check items, see these are all enabled. If we need to edit these, we can. We can edit the search, we can edit description, message, etc. But we are also able to add a new check item. So if we need to add a very custom search for our specific environment, we can give it all the information the other ones have, make it a search, save it. So then whenever we run that health check, that check will run as well. So it's a useful and customizable way to get that overview of your environment. So those are, that is overview, summary, and health check. So now we're going to jump into some of these more specific panels here. So we're first going to go to indexing. We'll click performance. As I mentioned, if it has this arrow, you have several sections under here. If it has this arrow, there's subsections under that section. So you can see pretty comprehensive list of things to look at here. So I accidentally clicked that. So we will go back. We'll go to indexing, performance, and then we'll click deployment. And so this is going to look at our total environment, this total deployment of Splunk that we have. And so this is showing your indexing queue performance on a index or an instance basis. So it uses instance as a word for server. throughout monitoring console. So if you see the word instance, think server. And so if you have issues where your ingest is delayed, your ingest queues are blocked, this is the first place you want to go to see which machine's having an issue and which queue is having an issue. So it's broken down by parsing, aggregation, typing, and indexing queue. You can see this is a pretty small test environment. So our queues are clear, but you can imagine if one's blocked, you'll have 100% here, 0, 0, because the way queues work, it goes left to right. So if you have typing queue blocked, you likely won't have anything on indexing queue, but you'll likely have a blocked aggregation and parsing as well. And you can see indexing rate. We have some historical charts down here that we can view as total. We can also split by host if we need to. We'll view as a total right now. You can see indexing rate. If you have indexing issues, you can imagine that if you have a sudden dip, you can get the exact time that that dip happened. If you have a sudden spike, that's also worth knowing. You can see when that happens as well. If you have a heavy fill ratio of these queues, you'll be able to see that here as well, and here as well. And like I mentioned, if we want to, we can click split by host, and we get information on a host by host basis. But we are also able to click on one of these instance names and get detailed information about that host in particular. So say in our hypothetical situation, this machine was having issues. If we go ahead and click on it, opens up a new tab for us with indexing performance instance. Whereas before we were on indexing performance deployment, now it takes us to indexing performance instance for that particular server. So you can see here, it shows us the queue fill ratio in a different way. So like I mentioned, from left to right here, and you can kind of see, get a little bit better information on which each queue handles. So typing pipeline handles the regex replacement, annotator, index pipeline, syslog out, TCP out, indexer. So an idea of if one of these is full, what kind of things you need to look for to start that troubleshooting, start that fixing process. And so for our historical charts, if we are on the instance page, we can actually get that broken down by source type, or if we want by index or host or source. So you can see if you have a data source that's having issues, you can say, oh, the KV store is high. What if it all of a sudden dropped out? It's an easy way to be able to see which data source is having issues, when it dropped out, or if you have a large spike in data. So say you accidentally changed a configuration that caused 10 gigabytes more data than you usually expect for that data source, you'll be able to easily see spikes and valleys in this graph. And then we have a line chart of the different queues, and we can get information there. We can get event processing queues or all queues. So this is the place where you can see some of those a little bit more hidden queues, because Splunk calls out these particular 4, but you can see there's actually a handful of other ones that can cause issues if they're backed up. So this is a good way to see all the queues that are handled by this indexer, make sure everything is running correctly. If you see a spike here, that's indicating an issue. So we can hop on over to the next one I want to show here. So we're going to go to indexing, or indexes and volumes. Then we'll go to indexes and volumes deployment. So this is going to give us an overview of indexes within an environment. So you can see we have 63 total indexes, 30 that have data in them over 4 instances. You're able to see the total index size, which the average amount per side or index, the average amount of total index size across all indexers, and then you get data age. So you can see our mean data age is 500, oldest is 4,000, likely able to say that pretty confident there's some sort of timestamp issue here, giving us data that's this old. So this is a way that you can really get that good information. You can get it by your indexes here. You can get total size, filter on any of this, see which indexes are taking up the most space in your environment. how often they're used, and then the data age. And then if you have volumes, we just have the one here. You can get information on that as well. But say we want more detailed information about one of these indexes. So say this pan index, we can go ahead and click on that. And it's going to go and open up index detail deployment, which you can see we were on indexing, indexes and volumes deployment. If we click on that index, we'll get that index detail deployment. So this is very specific information about this one index across all of the machines in this deployment, all of the indexers, I should say. So you can see it's across 3 indexers, the raw data size, we get the compression ratio, the total number of events, the earliest event and latest event. This is a nice way to be able to find out if you have any of those timestamp issues. This earliest event is years in the past, and you know that your retention period is different than that. You can identify these timestamp issues this way. But you can see our data age is 5,000 or 500, and our frozen age, which is when the bucket rolls to frozen, is 2,000. So we are not, accidentally click that again. We are not running up into that. We can see the index usage by total size allowed. We can see the home usage, code path usage. This is a very easy way to get some pretty detailed information about these indexes. If you have trouble with one of these, just start this investigation on this page. It's very helpful. We can even see event count by host and sources and event types, or source types, I should say. So you can see if one has, if we expect config to be a pretty low number like this, if all of a sudden it jumps up to a high number of events, we're able to see that here. And you can see we have our index size. If we notice there's a spike here, we can know, oh, this index size jumped up here on this date. What happened here? And then we have our median age, data age here. So you can see if it spikes as well, you know that something's gone on with the timestamps. Why did our data age get so old around here? So it's a very, very helpful investigation tool for any kind of issues with indexes. So next, we will go back to indexing. We will go to license usage, and we'll go to historical license usage. And so this is going to be showing us important information if you have to investigate license issues. So here you can see we have our stack size, basically our ingest limit per day. Like I mentioned, this is just a test environment, so we just have 5 gigs per day. Production environment's much higher. And then the volume is how much license usage you've actually used that day. So you can say that this environment is at no risk of running over our license usage limit. But if you can imagine that if you have constant issues with license warnings, or if you have very specific issues with license warnings, you can see exactly which day that happened. And you can see this is kind of a different view here. This is the percentage of your daily quota used. And again, we're hovering around 8 to 12%. But another useful way we can do, or useful tool we can use here, is the split by function. So this is just showing us total. But we can also split by pool, indexer, source type, host, source, or index. So you can say, if you have a day where your license went over your quota and you want to investigate why, you can sort, or you can split by either source type, index, host, something like that. And you could be able to see which index, for this example, is causing those issues. So you can say if we, let's pretend on July 12th, we went over our quota and this pan index was way high compared to the rest of the days. We can say, okay, we know that it's the pan index that has an issue. We can even split by source type, get the particular source type that may be causing the issue, start the troubleshooting process from there. And you'll notice that throughout Monitoring Console that it's not necessarily remediation of issues, but it is a troubleshooting tool to start that process. And it's very, very useful in that. You can see percentage of daily license quota used. We have that view there. So that's the split by function for historical license usage. In terms of license usage, we also have license usage today. Very similar information, just on a one-day basis. So next, we can go to indexing, inputs, data quality. So this shows any kind of parsing issues you may have with data sources, and you can easily identify problem streams of data based off of the source type, anything like the host count or the host. So you can see right here, we have a JIRA issue input log that has a line breaking issue. If we click this here, we can see it's from the heavy forwarder sys log. We have a line breaking issue that's coming from this particular log. We can jump right to that, see what's going on, see what we might need to do. And again, doesn't tell you what to do to fix it, but it does point you in the exact direction that you need to go to start that troubleshooting process. So it's very helpful if you have something that's coming in, not parsing correctly. If it's having some issues, a lot of times you'll get messages about parsing issues. This is a great page. The data quality page is a great page to see which host is having issues, which source is having issues, what kind of issue it is, so you can start jumping in on that troubleshooting. So next, we will hop on over to the search dropdown. We will click on activity, and we'll click on search activity deployment. Appropriately named search dropdown is going to be all about the searches that are run on your environment. So this one is going to be showing you information about the types of searches that are running within your deployment. So you can see our 3 search heads here, the count of searches, summarization searches and the limit, historical scheduled reports and the limit, historical search, real-time searches, etc. Then you can get a little bit of resource usage information, which we will jump into pretty soon here under resource usage, but you do get a little bit of that here. So you can see we have some search concurrency information. We have concurrency over time, and pretty importantly, we have top 20 memory consuming searches. So here we can see searches that are using a lot of physical memory. And these are the searches that we know that they might cause issues with other searches down the line, because every time a search is running, it's using a core of CPU. So if you have searches that are heavy usage or heavy memory users, they're likely running a long time. See the 20 seconds. They're using memory that could be used elsewhere. They may cause issues. They may cause search skips. So it's very useful to get this information, see what name of the search, where it's coming from, who it's running under, and kind of start that troubleshooting process from there. Again, more importantly here, if we notice that we want to investigate a particular search head, again, we just have to click on that, and it is going to open the search activity instance. So this will give us more detailed information about this search head in particular. So we can see we have the limit here and the actual running ad hoc searches, and then we get some scheduled searching information as well. And you can see it broke down by type here. We can split by other things if we need to. And we can see the physical memory usage, the CPU usage, and we can see the type of search by concurrency. So this is the number of searches running at the same time. And the more searches you have running at the same time, more likely you have to have search issues, searches delayed, searches skipped, searches not completing. So if you have a lot of those issues, you can kind of see which type of search may be causing the issues. Right here, we have the most number of scheduled searches. So if we were to have some issues, might want to look at these scheduled searches. And again, now we have some resource usage based off the type of search. You can see we pop off some other here that are pretty high, but in general, it's pretty split between scheduled and data model acceleration. And we have the same top 20 memory consuming searches, but this is just on that search head. Previous page we saw was deployment wide. This is just for that instance. And then we have average search runtime by type of search as well. So a lot of detailed information that's pretty useful in investigating what might be going on with searching, making sure everything's running correctly. And if you're starting to have issues, this is one of the pages you can come to get that information. So we can go to search. Next, we're going to go to activity, and we're going to go to search usage statistics deployment. And so this is going to show us information on the statistics of searches running. So we'll get things like median runtime, cumulative runtime, and we can get that by user, and we can also get that by search head. So this is a way that you can identify if there's a particular user that's running too many searches, if they're running searches with bad SPL that make them run for a long time, if they're using up a lot of that data, if they need to be taught a little bit more SPL, make it run a little bit quicker. This is a great page for that. So if you're starting to have search problems, search skips, things like that, this is another great page to look at. So you can say, if it's a particular user that's having those issues, may need to teach them a little bit more, may need to look at the searches they have scheduled, see if there's anything we can do to improve those searches. And we also have the search activity by search head. So you can see the search count, median runtime, cumulative runtime. So if you have one search head that's getting the bulk of the searching, you can say this may need to be split out. Do we need to add another search head? Do we need to cluster these search heads so we can kind of split out that search activity? This is a page you can look at that kind of data for. And we get frequently run searches. So we can see who runs it, the median runtime, the count. So if you have a search that's running often, that's taking a long time, you know that might be a problematic search that you need to look at, see, do we need this? Is there any way we can improve the SPL? What can we do to make this search better? So this is a great page to look at that. And we also have one for long-running searches. So if we have search that is running for a long time, you can see this search ran for 32 minutes. That's going to be a search that's taking up a lot of network bandwidth that you want to look at, see who ran it, if there's something you can teach them, if there's a way that you can help SPL, help that SPL be a little bit better. It's a great way to do that. So this is a very, very useful page for identifying issues with searches, identifying issues with users running those searches, and start that troubleshooting process. And so we can jump around to, actually go to resource usage now. So we'll go to resource usage deployment. So this is going to give us some information about, as you might guess, resource usage in the deployment. So it's going to show us the virtual cores and physical cores machines have, the CPU usage percentage, physical memory usage, I/O operations usage. And so we can say if we have one particular server that's having some performance issues, we can look at this, see where these performance issues are coming from and how we can improve those. So you can see we get a median load average, deployment wide, CPU usage. This is a little bit of CPU usage information, but we're actually going to look at a more detailed CPU usage page here in a moment. But if we have a particular machine, so we can see this one has the highest CPU usage percent, has the highest physical memory usage percent. We can go ahead and click on this, and it's going to open up resource usage instance. So like throughout monitoring console, if you click on a particular name of a server, it's going to open up a page that gives you information for just that server, usually a little bit more detailed. So you can see we have some process. This is usually split out by process class. So we can see physical memory usage by process class, CPU usage by process class, see if there's one that's causing more issues than the other. We can get that split out like this as well. So you can see this is a great way to get some more detailed information in general about the resource usage on that instance. and seeing which process class is causing the most resource use. You can see here, Splunkd server to be expected. And you can also see the physical or the disk usage. So if you're running it up against disk usage issues, if your mounts are filling up, you'll be able to check that here and see which servers may be having that issue and try to fix your storage issues that way. So we can click on resource usage again, and we'll go to CPU usage deployment. And like I mentioned earlier, this is more detailed information about CPU usage. Obviously, a big part of making sure Splunk runs correctly, runs well. You can get that detailed information on instance level, see the usage, the load average, get the time charts here by process class, split out by the function of the Splunk server. So you can see our indexers, scheduled searches are using up the most CPU usage. On our search head, it's split pretty evenly between Splunkd and scheduled searches. Pretty expected there. We got our historical charts. This is all about CPU usage. So again, you can see CPU usage of searches, CPU usage by process class. And once again, if there's one that we're interested in, we can click it and get that instance level CPU usage detailed information. So again, similar charts and graphs, but just on this particular instance. So very useful in identifying any kind of resource usage, especially CPU usage issues. So finally, we're going to jump to forwarders. There's just two under here, forwarders deployment and forwarders instance. We'll go ahead and click on deployment. So this is going to show us the forwarders for this deployment, which ones are active, and if there's any missing. So you can see we have 4 active here, 1 missing. And here we can see 1 is missing. It's actually just due to a error in the naming convention there. But you can imagine that if you have a handful of forwarders, if you have 100 forwarders, anything like that, you'll be able to easily identify which ones are missing and get some information about the ones that are active, whether it's universal or heavy, the version of Splunk it's running on, OS, architecture, the last time it was connected to an indexer, and a little bit of information about the ingest overall for it. And we got a count of forwarders and connection of the forwarders over time. And this one is, again, we can click, does not give us the most detailed information here. If we click an instance, kind of just gives us the status and configuration and outgoing data rate. So it's instance level, but not as much information as we're used to on some of these other instant levels. But it is good information to know. Make sure your forwarders are running well. Make sure that data is coming in the way you expect it to. So those are the types or the dashboards I wanted to show within Monitoring Console. Like I mentioned, there are a lot more dashboards within this that I suggest you check out. Some of them have some pretty important information. I just chose the ones that I've used in my day-to-day the most, the ones that I've seen most useful in general. And like I mentioned, there are a lot of limitations to Monitoring Console. It is more of an investigation tool rather than remediation. And some of the investigation tools don't give as much detail as you might need. And so there's different ways that you can expand it. Have some searches. Kinney Group offers the Atlas platform, which kind of expands on a lot of these functions. But overall, Monitoring Console is a very, very useful tool that any kind of Splunk engineer, Splunk admin is going to want to be pretty familiar with, want to know what these things do and what they can see with it, because it can make troubleshooting a whole lot quicker compared to trying to find this out on your own. So I think it's a pretty useful tool, pretty easy to set up, as we saw, and has a lot of that useful information. So we can go ahead and wrap it up here. Just wanted to mention that we have a new Lunch and Learn every month. Last month was working with data models presented by Brett. But if we have any questions on monitoring console, anything that I've mentioned today, just let us know in chat. If you think of something later on, we have our support@kinneygroup.com email address, and we'll be glad to answer any emails that any questions that you may have. But hopefully you learned some stuff. Hopefully you found out some useful information about monitoring console. But if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them. Where can I access the previous conferences? Steve will have some more information about that. If you don't mind jumping in, Steve, you might be able to throw the link into chat.
Hi, yeah, William, give me just a couple minutes here. Is there any other questions? And I will look that up in the meantime.
Yeah, some topics for previous Lunch and Learns, like I said, working with data models, accelerated searching, dashboard studio, visualizations, things like that. Some pretty useful information there. Security constraints prevent access to requested page whenever I log in. That may be, so monitoring console in particular is used for admins. So there are security constraints on non-admin users. If you have admin role, there may be some sort of permissions issue somewhere, because you can pretty much customize the roles pretty well. So it's likely some sort of permissions issue or role issue trying to access monitoring console. It's like I mentioned, by default, it's just admins that'll be able to access it. It looks like Steve threw the link in there for accelerating searches. He has the one for data models in there as well. So those are the links to some of the previous Lunch and Learns. And you should just be able to register for those, and they will show up as a video on demand for you.
And those are the last several. Let's see, there might be one more here.
I believe that should be all of them.
Yeah, I think that is it.
Yeah. All right. Yep, there's the links. And if there's no more questions, we can go ahead and call it done. And this was also recorded. So the same link that you've accessed this live presentation, afterwards, you can access the same link and watch the video on demand if need be.
It will take a few minutes to process, but that will get published out, yes.
All right. Well, I appreciate everyone coming today, listening to me prattle on about monitoring console. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you a lot for joining.
Y'all have a great day.